I've closed down our running app now, and we've returned back to our editor. And what we'll do now is nip to the VB script. So to get to the VB script, we simply press the Edit Script button. Our editor will load like this. Those of you who are familiar with custom panes in the core product will recognize most of this immediately, but there are some changes. So what I'm going to do now is just quickly nip through all the options along here, and then we'll start to talk about the changes for App Designer. The file option here, basically print and preview if you are interested in printing out your VB script. Edit, typical cut, copy, paste and things like that, which most editors do. The options are quite useful. I like to turn line numbering on, because any VB script error message that you will get will have a line number on it. So it makes sense that you can have a look at the line numbers which will appear down here. The save button here will save the VB script and return us back to our editor. The events option here is the first major difference now with the App Designer, and these are absolutely crucial to the way that the App Designer actually works. When your app is running, it is listening for three types of event. The onInitialize event will actually occur as your application is loading, and you might use this, for instance, maybe to open log files, pick up Syspro setup options, set form defaults, basically set up your application for the user to start using. The on-exit option here is the reverse of that. As your app is closing, this event will fire, and you might be closing your log files, but you also might be doing things like checking that all the fields have been completed properly, and any other aspect of your app that you need to check before you close it. You can actually stop the app closing and come up with an error message and things like that. The most crucial one is the on-user event. Every single interaction an operator has with your user interface of your app fires this event. And there are a variety of parameters that get passed to this event which you can catch, and therefore work out what's being pressed or edited on the form and do something about it. And we'll be covering these in detail shortly. Syntax check, well, that's just checking the syntax of a VB script editor. Sometimes it's useful if you've been typing for a while, but the syntax check is normally run when you save the script anyway. As you add more functions and procedures to your VB script, the procedures list extend, and it's just a quick way of being able to select a function and jump straight to that piece of code in your VB script. Code generation, very, very useful. Because it actually helps you generate quite large chunks of code, the business object being the most popular. But now that we've actually created or added data sources to App Designer, the requirement for running a business object in a VB script is less now. And then the view button we've already discussed. But these basically controls what appears over here. I like to have them all up here because I'm quickly flicking from one to the other. So with that, I'll just nip over here and start to explain things like callout functions. I wanted to spend just a few moments talking about callout functions. The callout function mechanism is a way in which App Designer and the VB scripts talks directly to the core Syspro business logic and UI logic. Basically, App Designer has its own VB script function called call Syspro function, and in that function, it passes a constant and some variables directly to Syspro and asks it to execute either instructions for core business logic or indeed user interface. So as an example, if we go to something like common callouts and look at something like close application here, we'll find that the call Syspro function will take the constant close app. There are no other variables to it, and it will automatically close the application. There are scores and scores of these functions, callout functions, basically broken down by control. If we have a look at, for instance, at the list view control, and it goes on and on and on and on and on like this. We'll be discussing these more and more as we go through and start to use some of these things. But absolutely crucial to understand that the way that App Designer talks directly to Syspro is through these functions, and it's these functions which are exactly the same code that the core Syspro system uses, which is how it manages to replicate the user interface behavior. Okay, so now that we've just sort of touched on that, we'll move on to doing some VB scripting. Right, let's get cracking with a little bit of VB script. So first of all, what I'd like to do when I'm writing my VB script is put some documentation or comment lines in. I tend to have a little Word document with a load of snippets of VB script that I quite like. You might decide to pop it in the sample code. You can use the insert code here to insert your own standard bits, and then they'll appear in this list. And so what we'll do, CQ1 in there, and today's date, which is the 30th of the 8th, 23, is a training for my course. Now, it may seem a little bit overkill putting comment lines in training testing stuff, but what you have to bear in mind in your normal app is that you, as the author, are probably not going to be the person supporting it, and therefore to help support people and obviously to avoid them ringing you to say what on earth does your app do, it's advisable to put comments in. For my own peace of mind, I also like to put comments in to at least guide me through the logic, should I be coming back in years to come to have a look at this this piece of code. So first of all, let's have a look at our event. So we'll pop in an on-initialization event, and you'll always have an on-user event. I like to put the on-initialize event in even though I might not be using it, because it logically makes sense when I'm reading the VB script. This is the first thing that will happen, and this is something that will happen as people are going to be using the UI. So let's have a look at what happens on the on-user event. The first thing that will be passed to it is an event type. So if we go to our callout functions tab here and have a look at event types, we can see that there's this is a constant that indicates to us what control has been pressed or used. So when we press our button, for instance, on our toolbar, it will raise a toolbar event. The toolbar name will come in as a second parameter. The event ID, remember the 1001, 1002, or the 38,000 for the combo will come in here, and then a series of up to 3 parameters dependent on the type of control that's actually going to be used. And you can see those parameters in events and event IDs here. So if we expand that, we can see that there are dozens of different events IDs here. And what we will find is that parameters are all explained as we're going through here. So as an example, if a form value field change, parameter 1 contains the caption, parameter 2 contains the changed value, and so on. And you can see all sorts of bits and pieces, loads of list view stuff there, and tree views and all sorts of things. So you can see now that the parameters and the constants being passed allow you as a VB scripter to be able to catch these and do something about it. So what we'll do first of all is something fairly simple. I'm just going to copy a little bit of code from over here. Bear with me. So basically, what we'll do here is I'm going to catch all the parameters passed in, and I'm just going to bang in a bog standard VB script message box, and let's just go and see what happens. So we're just going to save and exit. We will run our app. Okay, so here's our app. Let's see what actually happens when we start to select things. So here we're going to select the close button. And what's happened is the on-user event is fired, and we can now see what's being passed into our VB script. The event type is T for toolbar. The event name, that's the toolbar name. and we could find that by looking in the Application Explorer. There's the event ID 1002 or 01002, which is great. And there are no other parameters. Why does there need to be one? We just need to know that the close button has been pressed. And the same sort of thing as if we press the help button here, we get exactly the same thing and we get our event ID. However, if we go to something like the customer one here, the combo, we can see that it's a toolbar event because it's on the toolbar. We know it's the same name, but the event ID is 38,000 because that's the event ID that it did. But now it knows it's a combo. So it's actually parameter 1 has got the customer number in it. And notice that although we're displaying just the 6 characters, it's actually padded it to all 15. And then parameter 2 is the name of the combo as well. There isn't a parameter 3. So again, from a VB script point of view, you could see that it's very easy to say, well, if I'm looking for a toolbar event with event ID 38,000, then go and do something. So that hopefully gives you an idea of how the user event works. So what we're going to do now is move on and start to add a little bit of VB script to maybe close our app, bob a little bit of a help on, and start to move forward. I've closed our app down. We're back in the editor, and we'll just simply go to edit script. That's good. So what we're going to do now is just try and tie in a little bit of the toolbar. So let's get rid of that little bit of code that we had before, and we just do a little bit of logic here. So if event type equals, so we need to find out the event type. We go to event types over here, and we're looking for toolbar event. I'm just going to double click this, and it puts the constant name in for us. Okay, now what I'm going to be doing now is checking for event IDs from the toolbar. Now I could use a load of ifs and else ifs and go there, down there. I prefer the select statement personally. It's a little bit easier, and like that. And then we can put the value in here. Now, what we're going to do here is the 00102, if you remember, was the event ID for the close button. So what we're going to be doing now is if we go to common callouts here, and we go down here, look at close app, we just double click it, it will put the code in for us. Basically, it's saying call the Syspro function, it passes that constant to Syspro, no other parameters needed, and it will simply close our app and do whatever finalizing Syspro needs to do to tidy it up and update its own databases and so on like that. So let's have a quick look at this. We can just add 103. Oops. And we'll put a message box here, something like display screen. We'll be putting proper code in here in a short while. I just want to, and then we'll catch 38,000 there. And we will do a quick syntax check for us. There we go, we've made a mistake. So here's our line number. So I've clearly forgotten to, here we go, that's the mistake. Do our syntax check again, perfect. Okay, so let's run that. Okay, here's our app running again. So if we press our help button, the 1003 has gone through and we've caught it, which is great. We'll do the file close in a minute. If we do the customer, and it's found param1, so we've now caught the customer number. And then if we go here and close, it closes the app. So you get the general gist of actually what's going on here. So we're going to just do a little bit of tidying up on the toolbar and refine our little bit of VB script before we start adding forms. Right, I'm back in the VB script editor, and I just wanted to point out a couple of things that I like to do with my code. At the moment, we've hard-coded our event IDs into our select statement here, and whilst we're doing our course, we can clearly remember what these event IDs actually are. But in real life, and in time to come, we will forget. And more importantly, there may well be support people who have to try to debug our VB script, and simply hard coding event IDs in here is very difficult, because they'd have to look at the UI, look at the application explorer, and then try and find these out. So what I like to try to do is set up a series of constants which have more human readable names, which allow us to read the code better. So my naming convention for toolbars starts tbar underscore, and then I just give it a reasonably sensible name. So we'll pick up that, for instance, and we'll replace our hard-coded piece here, and we'll pick up that. And that will at least make it easier for support people and myself to understand actually what's actually going on. So there's just a little bit of a hint as well. And whilst we're here, though, there is one thing a couple of things I'd like to point out about the toolbar. So basically, to edit the toolbar, we go to Edit Application Details. Down here, we go to Design Toolbar. And if we click on any of these buttons here, we'll get into editing the help button, and it's the tooltip. I like to key in a decent tooltip here. In this case, I've typed in display help screen. Normally they're blank. The same with the close button. And we'll find here, maybe we've put something like, something like that there. And what you'll find in the customer combo is, because it's inherited a load of characteristics for the customer combo, it's also inherited the tooltip. But putting tooltips in does at least guide people into how to use your application. Okay, so we're in a good place now. We've got our toolbar working, we've wired it into VB script, we've got our VB script doing something. So we'll move on to the next section now, where we'll start to add forms, data, and a few bits and pieces like that. But before we go scooting off to do forms and things, I just want to show you a different way of closing the app. Now, what we've got to do first is go to add a button on a toolbar, and we add our button as normal. And in this case, what we'll do is we'll give it a name of exit, like all the standard Syspro programs. And notice now, just like with the combo box, it's suddenly allocated an event ID of 60,000. And this is because App Designer has recognized that the exit object and knows actually what you've got to do throughout the whole of Syspro. An event ID of 60,000 is close the app. So all we've got to do now, once we've got it on, is if we go and customize our toolbar, we'll just move that out of the way. We'll pick up our exit. We'll move it over here. We'll pop it under our close. And then we will close our app. And without any change to the VB script, I'm just simply going to run the app now. So here we are, and all we've got to do now is go File and Exit, and it will close the app. So I don't actually need any of the VB script that traps the close button, or indeed that constant. But the reason I put it in there was to start to introduce you to the VB script. So with that said, we'll scoot off and start putting a form on, and particularly our help screen.